Good evening, everyone. So, welcome to this new series of current affair issues where we will be exclusively targeting the prelims program. Also, the folks watching online on YouTube, I request you guys to sit down with a book and a pen, write down when you are participating in this session. Now that you've already opened the video, you might as well continue to use it properly so that out of the thousands of videos out there, most of the videos are left half watched primarily because of the concentration problem. To solve that, also for the folks offline, I would suggest that whatever we are studying, write as if you are using that note for the final exam. And the entire activity here in the classroom will ultimately culminate into you clearing this exam. Of course, through enough practice of the mock tests. Having said that, let's go back to the previous session where we were discussing on how we should be approaching the prelims program. Complete prelims preparation is about having an understanding of the UPSC examiner from the standpoint that it is a system wherein you will try to understand what logical traps UPSC examiner will be laying for you, and at every point how to overcome those traps. This is the methodology through which we'll be approaching the prelims. So if you see here, we have discussed that there are multiple layers through which a candidate must pass through to reach this higher levels where most of the toppers getting the scores around 110 to 120, no matter how the paper is, they usually end up at this level because they operate on multiple levels where most of the candidates are wasting their time by harding a lot of information. So you need to know where to stop. That sense of judgment and the so-called knack for clearing the prelims exam is going to develop through this program. That's the promise that I want to deliver through the sessions within the class itself. So it's not just current affairs from newspapers where random information is picked up. It's like an architecture, a structure under which you will be placing the previous year question themes, and whatever themes fall under these specific brackets, we will try to fill it with information from the newspapers and other government resources. Okay, it's like mapping the current affair articles from the newspapers and government reports to the respective buckets so that we draw the scope. This is the limit through which we will be studying the subject. Over and above that, it is all about the logical approach and the skill required to clear this exam. So yesterday when we were discussing, I told you that we have to pass through multiple steps to understand whether a specific topic is needed for elimination, or you have to recognize whether we have to eliminate this option or remember this option. Let's say, for example, you see there are 7 different kinds of statements that UPSC uses to confuse the aspirants. While you're doing the PYQ analysis, these 7 statements, should you remember them as it is, or should you see them as techniques used by UPSC to confuse the aspirants? I would say both. Let's say, for example, a topic that was there in 2018, it would have been a new topic in that year. But almost 6-7 years later, it will become a topic which is there in news. So the option that you used to confuse the aspirant will now become a new dimension of that topic. Let me tell you what we are talking about. But before that, let's use the first class to talk about a thematic representation of how we have to approach government environmental governance, government schemes, government related initiatives, laws. All this you should place under a specific architecture. And when you understand why we are doing all these things in the way we are doing, you will understand how to eliminate the options. So you are having a twofold objective. First, you will know the concept. Second, you will realize what trap can be laid by UPSC and how to avoid it. When you understand these two things, every topic can be cleared with ease. So when you are participating in the class, you will note down both the fact as well as the trap. Once you are revising the topic, you don't have to go back to your static textbooks again and reread them if you are focusing enough in the class. So the objective of the current affairs session is to combine both static and dynamic parts, but with an intention to make you realize what kind of traps UPSC can lay down, so that you will not only remember the facts, you will also realize the traps. Is that clear? So with this orientation, let me begin our theme number 1, environmental governance. Please write down. Otherwise, you will be sleeping in the class. Please write down. The theme number 1 that we are discussing for our current affairs is environmental governance. What do you mean by this? Can anyone tell me what is governance? Basically, it's a process laid down by law to solve a problem. The entire step-by-step procedure laid down by a government to solve a particular problem is nothing but the governance architecture. So if you want to solve an environmental problem, it should pass through various steps. Step number 1. Environment is a global level issue. Please write down. Step number 1. How to solve global problems. Step number 1. First, you understand that you have to create global level norms and agreements. Why? Why are we creating the global level norms and agreements? Because it requires coordination between multiple countries. Okay? That is the step number 1. Step number 2. The global governance will have some agreements under them. Let's say, for example, you have UNFCCC. It's a convention. It's just a broad agreement. Under the framework of this, you have a very specific initiatives, or in this case, in the case of UNFCCC, you have agreements, conference of parties that you talk about. Okay? You might get a question about agreements. Then you have global level norms. Then once you lay down the institutions, at the third level, you have to finance those, right? You have to finance those initiatives. So the third kind of question that is possible is about finance and support mechanisms. Clear? After that is done, you have the market driven mechanisms and the metrics to track what is happening. Let's say, for example, you have something called common carbon metric, a kind of a question that was asked in the previous years, 2021. If we are tracking any climate change related activity, it should yield an outcome. There should be some progress, and we need metrics to track that progress. So UPSC will ask questions on those metrics too. Those random metrics which you will see in the question papers, from random sites. You can't exactly by heart every single point from random articles, from random newspapers, websites. It's difficult to predict. But if you look at this entire architecture like a process, you will understand where questions are picked from. And the last kind of questions on the theme of environmental governance will be about spreading awareness. Okay, so what are the 5 areas from which you will get questions? First, global level norms, the basics about UNFCCC, UNCBD, all those areas. Step 2 will be about how those are institutionalized. Step 3 will be about how will we finance them. Step 4, market mechanisms and metrics to track them. And finally, awareness and innovation. Any question on environmental governance will broadly fall under any one of these categories. Now I want participation from you. Let's try to recall the most important what are these 3 commonly called? 3 conventions. Where did we sign these? So this is called the Rio framework, basically. Okay. What is the purpose of each of this? This is for what is the main agenda here? Is this under what was the original intent of this organization? Control carbon credits, control greenhouse gases. Okay, is there anything else? Let me ask you a question. Do we have any fixed targets here in UNFCCC? No, in the original 1992 deal, did we have any fixed targets? No. Is this legally binding? Is this legally binding? It is not binding. Why? How about others? Are they not agreements? Let me tell you the logic here. But before I tell that logic, what is UNCBD? Biodiversity. Is this binding? Why? This controls something else. This controls trade on wild animals. Then what does CITES do? What is biodiversity regulation aspect here? What parts of biodiversity are regulated? See, these are all basics. You think you all know this, right? Very boring. Then you should tell me the answers. Is this controlling genetic material? What aspect of it? Then what does CITES do? So let's say I create a genetically modified organism and suddenly it becomes endangered. Now what? Who will regulate this? Okay, let's leave it at that. What about this? Is this binding? No. No, yes. No. Why? In fact, this is the only binding agreement which has both environment and biodiversity. I mean, climate and biodiversity linked together. If you by heart this in the exam hall, is it possible that you will get confused? Understand the backstory now. This is where newspapers come into the picture. If you understand the motivation of respective parties in every negotiation, your prelims will become easier. In this case, it is not binding because climate change is primarily linked to our energy security. Oil, fossil fuels. Do you really think countries will cut down their emissions? That too in 1992, when economies are really peaking. And if it is binding, we wouldn't have had the type of climate change fiascos that we see today. If it is binding, then what is this concept of NDC? What is NDC? Why are we determining if it is binding? Don't they seem contradictory? Yes or no? If they're binding, why are we deciding what is important for us? I mean, it is very convenient for me to say I will only do this much. When you pollute, you're contributing. Like say for example, US is contributing the highest amount of pollution, and it is not even participating in the mitigation mechanisms, adaptation mechanisms. It is easy to blame respective parties, both the Democrats and Republicans, but historically if you see, neither of the parties did much to change the situation, because the underlying politicians were driven by capitalists. So what is the incentive for them to make this binding? Therefore, it is not binding. But when it comes to UNCBD, there is something called Nagoya Protocol. Can you tell me what is that? The name itself says benefit sharing. Whenever there is benefit sharing, if a poor country can create a some magic drug on the name of benefit sharing, a rich country can access it, make a small change in the biomolecule and patent it. It's a new economic access, new economic tool. Why would they let it go? So therefore it is binding. It's funny that even though desertification is impacted by our climate change, this is binding, this is not. How do you explain these contradictions if it were not for the underlying geopolitics? If you don't understand this nuance, you are more likely to buy hard things. Okay? So let me tell you the nuances and the traps therein. But before that, let's understand some important previous year questions and the initiatives that are given here. Firstly, you have something called UNOPS. It's a random organization name that came in 2023. Through our logical elimination engine, where 7 different kinds of statements are recognized, I often say that whenever you find an organization name, it's most likely changed by UPSC. Let's say for example, there is a statement which says that under an organization X, some activity is happening. Most likely this is distorted. Whenever UPSC gives random names which you wouldn't find in normal textbooks or any material, it's most likely that they change this. Why is it the case? Usually this is the case because they want to see your logical approach. Previously, if you were able to identify this one statement, so this is 1, 2, 3. Okay? So previously, if you were able to eliminate this one statement, your options used to be something like this: 1 and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2, 2 and 3. If you were able to eliminate this, it was easy to find the answer. You didn't even have to read these two. So many toppers who cleared the prelims exam, they used to use this trick. If you see an organization name, eliminate it, find the option, move on. If you take a look at the questions in 2018, 17, 19 and until 21, you would notice this trend. But now it's slightly complicated unless and until you know the underlying logic, the purpose of the organization, and put it under a structure like how we have done that. It's going to get even more difficult. It is important to know this logical patterns of how UPSC designs question, but it's equally important to know the purpose of each statement, because they are asked in the previous year questions, and that is the kind of preparation we need to have. A logical, structured approach. Clear? With this context, let me take you to the first 5-step architecture that we had. So firstly, you are talking about global norms and agreements, where you come together and make those treaties happen. This is the step 1. Then you need to bring about institutions to enforce those treaties. These are some of the names of the organizations that came in the previous year questions. Okay. Then you had questions on the finance and support mechanisms. When I say support mechanisms, sometimes technical bodies to make this treaties happen, you will get questions on this part also. Next up is the market mechanisms. Like say for example, in Kyoto Protocol, you've had the clean development mechanism. Then when you're talking about carbon markets, Article 6 of the Paris Climate Deal. This is an extremely important theme this time. I'm expecting questions. In fact, if you take a look at the original text, I will tell you what kind of traps can be laid down if UPSC decides to go in depth in this topic. So you understood the logical evolution of the questions, right? The broad category of questions that you will most likely get. Now, let's see the respective conventions in the Rio. What can be the traps here? Firstly, it is not legally binding. I clearly told you why it is not legally binding. So it aims to stabilize the greenhouse gas concentration. Like you can't have historical highs from 1750 till 2025. It is increasing. Earth has small bandwidth to accept any more carbon dioxide. And we are not doing anything to make situations better. It is in that context, UNFCCC acts like a broad framework. Under that framework, we have delayed the negotiations for respective time periods. And that is why you have the COP5, COP21, Glasgow Summit, etc., etc. Nothing really substantial is coming out of it despite 30-35 years. Okay? Remember, it doesn't set any targets itself. The protocols that come out of this negotiations in the conference of parties, they will generate. Please write down this trap. It's highly likely that you will make a mistake if you don't write this down. Even if you know it, write down. Because you are sitting in this class, everybody should make it a habit. It's like a revision. Write down. Next up, UNCBD. What are the dimensions? Whenever you think of CBD, these keywords should come into the picture. Conservation, sustainable use, and fair benefit sharing from genetic resources. 3 aspects. Which of the following are the subject matter of UNCBD? You should not get confused. There are three objectives and it should be on your fingertips. Conservation, sustainable use, and fair benefit sharing from genetic resources. So the common misconception when we are dealing with UNCBD is that they don't consider the ecosystem services. What do you mean by ecosystem services? Yes. The biogeochemical cycles, nutrient cycles, everything that our environment has to offer us, biodiversity has to offer us. We have to conserve that also, right? So usually we don't think of ecosystem services. UNCBD protects that also. Now one more question. Is this treaty covering international waters? Yes or no? No. Recently there was one more treaty, BBNJ. What is the full form of BBNJ? Biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction in the international waters. Please write down. Same point here. Please write down BBNJ is a separate treaty, not under UNCBD. Okay. Now, when it comes to UNCCD, what you should focus on, it's the sole legally binding international agreement linking environment and development to sustainable land management. It is the only international agreement. Okay. So you should know this fact. We are at the bottommost layer of the pyramid. We are trying to remember some facts. These are the facts that you must remember. What is the trap that you should be focusing here on? They are not just about deserts. Entire land ecosystem we are focusing on, that arid, semi-arid and dry subhumid areas are also covered here. There's one more caveat which I will be talking about. Please note this important trap. Don't ignore this. It is not just meant for deserts. Can I move forward? Sorry. You have to focus on every aspect of land degradation, including, let's say, for example, soil fertility. There is a capacity to which you can, take resources out of land. It includes sustainable agriculture, sustainable urbanization, land use variety. We'll be talking about that. It's coming up. Which one? Yeah, the same thing. It's about every activity that has got to do with land degradation neutrality. The concept is how we should ensure that the sustainable use cases, we are not breaching that limit. Okay, this I explained. Now we are at the step number 2. Usually you might get questions on the differences between various kinds of institutions within the larger conventions. COP, CMA, this part. It's the governing body for Paris Climate Deal. Okay. So it's the body that oversees the NDCs. You can ignore this because it's no longer functioning It's existing, but just to finish up the agenda of the Kyoto Protocol, focus more on this. Now here, focus more on UNEP and UNDP role. See, UNDP role is more like a project manager. Let's say, if you want some activity to be executed, just like how MPs and MLAs will create a law and actual work is done by the executive, the bureaucracy, you need someone on the ground to make things happen. That support staff is given by UNDP. Okay? And if you want any scientific support, UNEP will be giving them. They are not funding mechanisms basically. Please remember that. Clear? What are the important points that you need to know about the Paris Climate Deal of 2015? You need to know. See, please participate and write down, otherwise you will again get diverted. Every point here is a potential prelims and mains question. Let's say, for example, if I'm asking you, what is the exact purpose? You need to know what is the purpose of, what is the main agenda of Paris Climate Deal? Comment. Do you think we are on the path to achieve that? Okay. So the purpose is you have to stay below 2 degrees Celsius. The global average temperature of the entire globe should not rise beyond 2 degrees. If possible, keep it below 1.5 degrees Celsius only. Clear? Now, what is the point here we are talking about? Nature. What do you mean by nature? The way this deal is conceptualized, we are focusing more on the grassroots level. So we are talking about concepts like localization of SDGs often. Right. So this localization of SDGs is possible only when grassroots level institutions, democracy is possible. So at a global level, we are allowing the countries to decide whatever they can do. For example, in India's case, we have something called INDCs, nationally determined contributions in the context of India, and it is up to India how we will plan. Ideally speaking, we should empower the grassroots level village institutions to contribute in this cause. Otherwise, in the long term, it will become unsustainable. We need a bottom-up approach for environmental issues. At the top, you create a overarching philosophy on how to go about this, because you have the bird's eye view. At the state level and the grassroots level, that is local level, you have to empower people to actually execute it. So this is the mechanism. So here you have 3 different concepts. You might get a question. ETF is a framework that was conceptualized in UNFCCC inaugural conference. False. Is it under Kyoto Protocol? False. Okay. Global stock tick. What does it mean? See, we contributed something, but is it effective or is it enough? You need an audit from time to time. That audit is called global stock tick, and it happens once in every 5 years. So this is something that you need to know. This Article 6, I will talk about this. Article 6 of the Paris Climate Deal. This is something that has got to do with carbon markets. Any current affairs based questions on carbon markets will come from this. So what do you mean by ITMO's SDM? Ever heard this points? What is ITMO? Any idea? Anybody? Okay. So as far as this legal status is concerned, all the signatories must submit and update NDCs, but the target achievement is not legally binding. You just have to submit the report, which is mandatory. Whether you do it or you don't do it, submit at least. That is the status. Now, Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. This is the most important issue for your prelims as well as mains. All the negotiations happening in the present context are related to this Article 6 only. What is it talking about? It's a legal basis at an international level. For what? Voluntary. Please focus on this word, voluntary. Voluntary international cooperation through carbon markets and other approaches to achieve NDCs. Here, you will be looking at ITMOs. What is this ITMO? Internationally transferred mitigation outcomes. Please note this down, this term, ITMO. Internationally transferred mitigation outcomes. Guys, write down. I can give this PPT. The reason why we are going slowly is because your mind requires time to absorb all this content. Even if you're sitting in front of a video, you won't be able to focus for a long time. There's nothing much to focus here. Ultimately, after all this digital revolution came, it all boils down to execution. Everything is served in front of you. Okay, ITMOs. Then you have sustainable development mechanism and non-market approaches. These three terms are important in the context of Article 6 of the Paris Climate Deal. Okay. 1. ITMOs. This is about carbon trade between two countries. What is a carbon trade? We already discussed this multiple times, but quickly I will sum up. Let's say there are two countries. One country is polluting, the other country is not. The other country will have some carbon credits because it is not polluting, which it can sell to the polluting country and make money. That is carbon credit mechanism. Then you have the sustainable development mechanism. This is more like a continuation of the clean development mechanism that we know in Kyoto Protocol. Any idea what CDM is? Basically, it's an arrangement between two countries. A developed country will help in adapting to the effects of the climate change. Some green projects will be taken up in those countries. But the problem is it is not completely operational, and the methodologies have been finalized, but there is no final approval. In short, nothing much progressed. Then the non-market approach. What is the non-market approach? Look at this. This involves collaboration without carbon trading. This is the main point. Without carbon trading. It focuses on enabling activities such as adaptation finance, tech transfer, capacity building, nature-based solution. Again, the framework is adopted, but nothing much progressed here also, because it's got to do with least developed countries. Mostly this non-market approach is followed by the least developed countries because it has got nothing to do with money. They would get benefit out of it. So these are the three broad mechanisms: ITMOs, SDM, NMA. So now let me ask you a question. Paris Climate Deal is talking about only, if you see any words like this, only market mechanisms. True or false? Why? You have a non-market approach. What other questions can be asked? Let's see. Take a look at this. Now, you can have multiple traps like this. First, is Article 6 operational yet? Did I tell you anything about Article 6 coming into action completely across the world? No. In fact, India is starting its carbon markets next year. Okay. So that is one trap. Next, ITMO. In this case, are you seeing an overview or supervision from UN side? Let's say in ITMOs, we are saying that 2 countries are participating in the carbon trade. Okay, carbon credit trade. Is it overseen by UN? No. UN can give a accounting guidance at max because you need a uniform structure, but it has got no business in any bilateral engagement. Clear? So that can be a possible trap. Write down. It is not under UN supervision, ITMOs. Please write down even if you know this. This alone will become your prelims revision note. Once you go back, sit with this document for 5-10 minutes, revise that, most of the topics will be over. Third, the sustainable development mechanism is more like a continuation of the clean development mechanism of Kyoto Protocol. This is false. It's like a successor, but there is a slight difference. What is the difference? Take a look at this. It requires overall mitigation. A percentage of units cancelled for net benefit beyond simple offsetting. So the problem here is, let's say in the base year, let's say we'll consider 2025 only, a country X and a country Y. X, our overall target is, let's say 100 units. In the year 2025 or let's say 2020, you are X as a country is producing 20 units and Y as a country is producing only 10 units. So you have a bandwidth to sell 10 credits. Now next year, Y reduced only 5. It has a bandwidth for 15. But it increased. Like this, if there are many countries like X, the total will breach 100. There is only a small set of countries which are actually reducing their emissions. But large number of countries are continuing to increase their emissions. What is the net result? It is beyond what is allowed. So, if this scenario is there, what is the point of this SDM? This scenario actually happened in clean development mechanism. There is no net positive reduction. To overcome that effect, it is a slight change. We are focusing on overall mitigation. And that's why it is not a literal continuation of the clean development mechanism. This can also be used as a conceptual trap. Clear? The next trap. Anything that has got to do with India's stance can become a point of contention. So let's say, for example, if they give a statement like India exports Article 6 credits actively. India doesn't do that. First, we have to meet our own NDCs. Only then international trading will be allowed. Clear? Our stance, this is unlikely, this question, because that can change over a period of time. But as of now, India doesn't intend to trade internationally. It wants to do domestic trade only. First, focus on reducing the emissions within the country, then think of international trade. Next, it only covers carbon trade. No, there are non-market approaches also, as you can see here. Clear? So that constitutes everything that you need to know from current affairs with respect to climate change. So these are the most important things. Otherwise, you will also have many conference of parties, this summit, that summit, etc. But for now, focus on the basics. In the month of December, we will focus on the most important concepts, and as and when time progresses, we will curate newer current affair articles after the first priority is done. My current affair upgrade on environment will come after economic survey comes out. Why? Because economic survey will have a chapter on environment. In that, based on the topics picked up by the economic survey, I will do the backdated search for relevant articles and pick up themes by collating it with the PYQs and making it easy for you to consume. But until then, focus on whatever is given to you now. Okay? What are we doing? In this class, we are doing the environment, governance, architecture based themes. We have spoken about 5 different kinds of questions that can come in the exam, and we are doing one topic after the other. We just finished the UNFCCC. Then you can move forward and start the second topic of UNCBD. But before that, just take a minute and revise everything once. You have to finish it now itself. Done? See, the class is structured in such a way that you finish reading here itself. Okay? Visualize how these questions can be asked in statements, and your prelims game will be solved. And one more thing, if you are present in these classes completely with your mind and learn the art of not giving up without reading the question, most of the questions in environment most of them are solvable. The most unpredictable area in prelims is these topics of environment, but seniors or people who consistently score above 100, 110, they get most of the environment questions right because it's easy to take an educated guess. Unlike in polity, history, etc., where specific facts should be recalled. Concept alone will help you sail across. In environment, and science and tech. But you need to have a very strong conceptual grip. And for that to happen, you need 100% presence of mind in the exam hall. Train yourself for that in the classroom sessions only. I know it is difficult to sit for longer hours, but please do it. Finish writing here itself so that your handwritten notes will be very useful. The best use of your own handwriting is that you are emotionally attached to that because you are invested in it. You are making it with your own hands. So you find it much more useful after you go back home. Okay? Now, second topic, UNCBD. What is the purpose here? Threefold purpose: conservation, sustainable use of biodiversity components, and fair and equitable sharing of benefits. Access and benefit sharing, ABS. So the threefold purpose is achieved through some protocols. What are the protocols here? Take a look at this. As far as the access and benefit sharing is concerned, you have Nagoya Protocol. What is the other protocol under UNCBD? Cartagena Protocol. What does it talk about? What about it? Safe transboundary movement, handling and use of LMOs or GMOs. Biosafety. So if I give you a statement, UNCBD bans use of genetically modified organisms, is it true? It is false, obviously, because we are talking about safe use. That is why we have a Cartagena Protocol. Take a look at this. CBD does not ban GMOs. There is an international protocol to ensure we handle the GMOs very safely. What is the organization in our country that ensures this biosafety? Genetic Engineering Appraisal Committee, GEAC. Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. Nagoya Protocol, how did it actually come into shape in Indian context? Which act? Biodiversity Act. Okay. So what is the methodology of CBD? You have National Biodiversity Strategies and Action Plans. Okay. Please focus on this. Here you can think of federalism. How is federalism important here? GS2, center-state relations, federalism. What is the respective role of center, state? Here you have to think of Article 246. What is Article 246? It has Schedule 7. Under Schedule 7, you have Union list, state list, concurrent list. Environment falls under which list? Originally it was a part of? When did we come into this concurrent list? When did we take them into 42nd Amendment? Wonderful. Okay. So please focus on this. Now the third point, take a look at this also. CBD focuses on conservation and sustainable use of diversity, not the regulation of the international trade. This is the mistake that most people do. CITES takes care of the international trade. It only focuses on sustainable use. What is this meaning of sustainable use? Basically, let's say invasive alien species is there. If you need to regulate the entry of that invasive alien species into our country, the framework is at the global level, CBD, national level, Biodiversity Act. Okay. So these are some of the important points. Again, here also, access and benefit sharing. I was talking about how a rich nation can access a poor nation's knowledge? We have something called the Traditional Knowledge Digital Library. Anybody know that? Let's say, for example, you have turmeric, which is the most commonly used ingredient in our cooking and also our traditional medicine. Uh, some 15 years ago, there was a bid to patent the molecule which is there in turmeric. UK or USA, I don't remember exactly. They tried to patent this. And we start them by saying that it is a violation of our traditional knowledge, because it becomes difficult to access otherwise. Like if some company is patenting turmeric, imagine the cost of turmeric in our day-to-day activities. It might spike up. And who gives them that access? It's so commonly found. It's not like something that they discovered. Right. So it is not automatic. There should be mutually agreed terms and prior informed consent. Clear? So these traps can be asked as statements. So unless and until you are paying attention to these specific nuances, these are concepts part. The bottommost layer of our pyramid and second layer. The first two layers will be about facts and concepts in our this PDF. You can see. This part. Basically, we are dealing with these two layers, remembering and understanding part. Clear? Whatever you are noting down is about this. Instead of searching for multiple books, you are doing it within the class so that you are ready for any future tests that you will take. Okay? Now, next. CITES. What is the purpose of this? Endangered animal trade. What are the areas where you might fall under a trap? Take a look at this. CITES is about trade regulation. It has got nothing to do with habitat protection. Meaning, let's say for example, there is an animal found in one specific region. It's not the domain of CITES. It has got nothing to do with the conservation aspect. It only involves a legal mandate of stopping illegal wildlife trade. That is point number one. It does not classify extinction risk. That is for IUCN status. IUCN will tell whether this is an endangered species or not. Based on that status, the entry of animal into the corresponding lists, Appendix 1, 2, 3, will happen, and the national and international laws will get triggered automatically. Then, third problem. The third possible trap. They're based on conservation status and they have nothing to do with geography. For example, in one geography, it might be an endangered species. In another geography, it might not be. But if IUCN declares on an international level a specific animal or a plant as endangered, trade rules will kick in because they'll put it in a respective bucket. Appendix 1, 2, 3. So it's basically like IUCN gives a status, CITES architecture looks at that status and puts it in bucket number 1, 2, 3. So bucket number 1, species threatened with extinction, complete ban. Appendix 2, bucket number 2, they're not threatened, but if they are over exploited, they might. So it is on the verge of being extremely endangered. 3, they are protected in at least one country, so international cooperation is necessary. Clear? So these are the broad appendices of CITES. 3rd March, I guess. Recently we have seen the 50th year of CITES. UPSC did not ask. Maybe you will get a question in 2026 or 27. UPSC has a slight lag. It will wait for 2 years before every aspirant forgets it, and then UPSC will bring it into the question paper then. Okay. So 50 years of sites. 3rd March 1975 it was signed. UN declared it as the uh, Day for Wildlife Trade or something. 1 second. Let me see. Yeah. World Wildlife Day. Okay. India did not join immediately, joined in 1976. Some of the traps. It is not an IUCN treaty. It is not conserving habitats. It regulates trade and has got nothing to do with issuing permits. It is just an advisory body. It is up to the respective governments across both the sites to give those permits or not. Within the regulatory framework, there are two different kinds of bodies. One is the scientific body, the other is the management executive body. So if UPSC decides to go extremely deep into the topic, they might ask, scientific body of sites is actually binding or advisory. Overkill, I understand, but sometimes UPSC, if it decides to go in depth, you have to understand the logic. Any scientific body's advice, how can it be binding on a country? You might ask, why not? The same logic goes to UNFCCC too. Science tells that unless and until you guys cooperate, the entire planet is gone. And yet, we choose to negotiate it further. Okay? Science doesn't exactly deal with human problems. It should be the other way around. Humans should deal with the science problems. Nature doesn't wait for us. Okay, so this is fine. Yeah, one more thing. Previous year question. Mike. It is about monitoring elephant trade. This initiative is from sites. It is not a UNEP or a UNESCO initiative. Please remember that. Usually anything that has got to do with trade, wildlife trade, it will come under the ambit of sites. UPSC might change that and put it under UNEP, UNDP or UNESCO, something like that. Please be careful. Okay? I will stop the class here because if it is more of a burden, it will get overwhelming. Go back, revise this. Like this, we will finish all the important articles. And I think if you are sticking to the points given here and revising them in the class itself, it's very likely that you will finish the entire important concepts. Most of them will appear in the prelims exam. That much I can assure as far as current affairs is concerned. Whatever is practically possible to remember, you will be remembering them. Some of you might have been part of the previous batches also. Even though the material is less, the hit ratio is very high because focus only on what is possible instead of by-hearting a truckload of information. Be very methodical and logical in the approach. Always ask, why is this possible? Why is this not possible? And then remember the information. It will make your life easier. That's it for the day. Again, I'll meet on the next scheduled day. Okay, thank you.